What if doubling or even tripling your sales didn't mean working harder, but instead what's holding you back? Ursula Mentjes began in her family Minnesota farmland, dreaming of law school while hustling retail shifts. Fate landed her in sales, and within 1 year, she was growing a branch from zero to $1 million in revenue. By age 27, she was the president of the entire company, having grown revenue 90% to a $20 million annual run rate. In 2004, Ursula founded Ursula Inc. and is now a 5-time USA Today best-selling author. Books like Selling with Intention, One Great Goal, and The Belief Zone have helped entrepreneurs shift from overwhelm to alignment, often doubling revenue in just 30 days, using mindset tools rooted in neuro-linguistic programming. She shared the stage with Les Brown. Lisa Nichols and Brian Tracy endorsed her work, and she's been honored with awards from the SBA Women in Business Champion to Lifetime Achievement recognitions from 2 U.S. presidents. This is more than business coaching. It's about dissolving limiting beliefs, creating quantum revenue, and reclaiming time without burnout. Ursula's story is not about scaling. It's about evolving through strategy, story, and soul. And before we start this episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth, and the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Jane, a graduate who says, and I quote, "The Deep Wealth Mastery Program prevented me from making what would have been one of the biggest mistakes of my career. I almost signed on the dotted line with an unsolicited offer that I now realize would have shortchanged my hard work and my future had I accepted that offer. Deep Wealth Mastery has tilted the playing field to my advantage." Or how about Lynn? Wow, he gets right to the point, and I quote, "Deep Wealth Mastery is one of the best investments ever made because you'll get an ROI of 100 times that. Anyone who doesn't go through this will lose millions." And as you're listening to these testimonials, are you wondering if you have the time? Are you even thinking that you've got this covered? You have the advisors or people in your network? Well, I got to tell you, these myths, they're often behind the 90% failure rate for liquidity events. Think about it. You have one chance to get it right for your financial freedom. You really want to make it count. And when it comes to time, let's hear what William has to say. We just got in this testimonial. William says, and I quote, "I didn't have the time for Deep Wealth Mastery, but I made the time and I'm glad I did. What I learned goes far beyond any other executive program or coach I've experienced." So what do you think? As I hear that, that's exactly what gets me out of bed every day. That's my mission. That's the team's mission here at Deep Wealth, to literally change the social fabric of society, one business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. And my Deep Wealth Nation, what I want you to know, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it isn't theory. It's from the trenches. It's the only one based on a 9-figure deal. And that deal, that was my deal. You know my story. I said no to a 7-figure offer. I created a system that later on, myself and my business partners, we said yes to a different buyer, a different offer, a 9-figure deal. That's what we now call the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or the Scale for Ultimate Sales system. It's built by business owners for business owners. So if you're interested in growing your profits, for preparing for a future liquidity event, and that may be 2 years away, it could be 22 years away, whatever the time may be, you want to do this now, and you want to optimize your post-exit life. Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. To get started, email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. You'll receive all the information about the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or better yet, why not hop on a complimentary strategy call? We'll go through exactly where your business is today and what's standing between you and your financial independence and your dreams. So that's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you. They're looking to grow their businesses, create market disruptions, and unlock their financial freedom to get what they deserve. And whether you've been in business for 3 years, 40 years, you're a startup, you're in manufacturing, you're in high tech, low tech, whatever the case may be, come on in and network with other business owners. It's a safe space. It's a confidential space with business owners, with businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. So again, the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Deep Wealth Nation, welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. Well, Deep Wealth Nation, you know I love my rhetorical questions. Let me ask you this. how are your revenues? How are your profits? What are your sales like? Are you growing the company the way that you would like? Or is it the same blank, different day? You can fill in the blank. I'm sure you have all kinds of explicitives for that. And you want to get out of this mousetrap that you're in and get to a bigger and better place. Well, if you said yes, and I know you did, you're in the right place. We have a very special guest in the House of Deep Wealth. I have a fellow entrepreneur, author, podcaster, and someone who's going to share some terrific insights. So Ursula, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. An absolute pleasure to have you with us. There is always a story behind the story, Ursula. Well, what's your story? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
First of all, Jeffrey, thank you for inviting me to be on the show, and to all your listeners. It's lovely to connect with you. Excited to have this conversation and see where it goes. I am a farm girl from southern Minnesota. So grew up on a farm in southern Minnesota. I'll tell you this, if you've never baled hay and had to be under a hot tin roof in 110 degrees and push bales under, I would say you're missing out. Growing up on a farm, I learned a lot of skills, from baling hay to all kinds of things. And to me, that's the definition of hard work, right? Hard physical labor, 24/7. And it set me up to see everything else, every other kind of work outside of that, to be very easy. So, definitely a perspective shifter early on. My parents hadn't gone to college, but were still very successful, running a successful farm, but they wanted their kids to go to college. And so I found the closest school that I could, 20 minutes from the farm, Jeffrey, a little school called St. Olaf. It's not where the Golden Girls are from. It's a little Lutheran college. I graduated with a degree in psychology and communication. And I share this because for all the liberal arts majors out there, it sounded good. It sounded like a great idea. But then when I graduated, I was like, what am I going to do? Wanted to go to law school, didn't have any money to pay for it. What am I going to do? And like a lot of you listening, that is when I became what I will call an accidental salesperson. Can anyone relate to that? Here's how it happened. I was working at Pier 1 Imports making $6.25 an hour with my friend Jana, who was an economics major from St. Olaf. I want to say that, but she was working with me for $6 an hour. And she said, hey, Urs, I have an opportunity for us. And Jeffrey, my favorite word in that sentence was us. I said, do tell. She said, listen, and this is interesting given what you do. She said, my aunt and uncle just sold their company. This is years ago, to IBM for $10 million. There were 4 owners. They are empty nesters. And they said we could come and live with them in the foothills of Boulder for free, and we could be transferred to the Pier 1 that was there. So that's what we did. Of course, I said yes to that, right? Now, I had a lot of limiting beliefs about money, about people who own businesses. I didn't know anybody with a lot of money. So I show up with a lot of limiting beliefs, like, are, rich people greedy? Are they, just all the things that we've heard? Well, no. Maybe some are, I don't know. But Jana's uncle, Will, was one of the most extraordinarily generous people I'd ever met in my entire life. He and his wife, Carol, welcomed us into their multi-million-dollar home in the foothills of Boulder. You can imagine the extraordinary beauty that we landed in. And one day, Will sat me down and he said, what are your plans for the future? Which is also probably kind of code for you and Jana can't live with us forever. I said, Will, I had to think of something, right? So on my feet, I'm like, I want to go to law school. I was looking at law schools actually in the Denver area, and they're expensive, right? Without skipping a beat, this generous former business owner said, Carol and I would be happy to pay for that for you.
Wow.
He didn't even know me. He said, I see your potential. I see what could happen. Well, let me tell you, the Lutheran farm kid in me who had grown up, sometimes farming wasn't a big moneymaker in the 80s. We were on food stamps sometimes. Like, we come from not a lot, enough to eat organic food, right? We were spoiled in that way. But I said, Will, I could never accept a gift like that. I was just blown over by his generosity. And he said, I totally respect that, Ursula. May I offer you some advice? And Jeffrey, this was the game changer. This is when people were meant to show up on your path. And I said, yes, I would love some advice. And he said this. He said, get a job in outside sales and you can do anything. You could pay for law school. You could have your own company someday. You could do anything. It is the skill that you need to learn. You've done all these other things. I said, what's outside sales? Does that mean I'm outside selling? Like, I literally did not know what he meant. And he was laughing at me. He goes, just go update your resume and send it to me, and I'll send it to some people I know. I went to work that day. And I was working at Pier 1, and this woman comes in wearing a really nice navy blue business suit. We start talking. She's like, what are you doing here? And blah, blah, blah. And I just said it, right? Once you know what you want, you just got to tell somebody. So I jokingly said, yeah, I'm looking for a job in outside sales. Her name was Christine Grayboy. She worked for an international computer training and consulting company. And she just said, "Oh, we're hiring." I said, "Whoa, okay." She gave me her business card. She said, "Send me your resume." And in that moment, Jeffrey, I could have disqualified myself. I was a psych major. I didn't know anything about technology. I didn't know anything about selling it, but I didn't disqualify myself. And I think as entrepreneurs, business owners, anyone who has pushed through to that next level, one of the keys to staying on this path of growth is not disqualifying yourself. So I went home, I updated my lame resume, I sent it to Christine. They interviewed me. They were actually, my first bosses were actually from Toronto, and they were some of my favorite people in the whole world. Maybe you even know them, a guy named John Pico. They hired me, and the rest was history. And the short story after that, I started in outside sales, made 100 cold calls every day, read every book I could, hated every book I read on selling, went from being like very scripted in the sales process to learning how to sell with intention, which became the first book I ever wrote. Learned how to connect with people, solve problems, meet needs. And I went from outside sales at 22. And by the time I was 27, I was president of this $20 million tech company. That's my story. Eventually I left. I became highly unemployable, started my own companies, right? That's what happened later. But that's my story.
Wow, my goodness, so much there. First, congratulations on the story. And Deep Health Nation, with what I'm about to say next, if you're more the logical person, if it doesn't happen on a spreadsheet, it just doesn't happen, or if it's not in a complicated formula, it doesn't exist. Here's what I'm going to say, Ursula. Your story, the wheels are turning in my head, but I'm just thinking, some people call it God, some people call it the universe, some people call it the field. You had an intention, and look at the synchronicities from that one line. And that one line, go in outside sales. We could easily say that one line was way more valuable than paying for that education, and nothing wrong with education and getting that degree, but it planted a seed. And then later that day, someone just walks in and you shared what's on your mind. You're just very earnest, very open, and boom, there's your opportunity. A synchronicity. You could not write a storyline any better than that. Truth is often better and greater than fiction. But let me go back to something for just a moment. And I may be so off base with this stereotype. This has just been my own personal experience, my own observations. I find people like yourself who come up with a farm background, a farming family, there's a work ethic there. There's a value system there that often, no guarantees, but often leads to terrific and monumental success in the business world. And you may say, Jeffrey, you're so far off base, or actually, yeah. So growing up, and I understand you didn't have money with the family and what goes along with farming. I don't know if so much has changed today. In fact, maybe it's even worse than it was back then. But the values that you learned, that you were taught, the work ethic that you had, did that play a role? And if it did, how did it play a role in your entrepreneurial journey and even in your career when you started before becoming the entrepreneur? What was it like for you having those values?
Yeah, 100%. When the farm runs 24/7, there were always chores to do. We knew what they were. We knew, like, we all had jobs to do on the farm. So I had a job very early. And then some of my first paid jobs were hoeing beans for $3 an hour in a candy bar and a soda. So I learned the value of hard work. And also, in terms of values, I should say this. My dad was also German and military.
Oh
And
boy.
so my German relatives were very strict in their work ethic, how they saw the world, and the importance of a couple of things, like finishing what you started. Like, you
Yep.
never left something unfinished. You always finished it, even if it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. And your word is everything. And if you said you were going to do something, you do it. I've always lived by that. My word is everything. And I think that has been a tremendous key to my success. And I think people are often surprised by that. They're like, "Oh, you said you were going to do that and you did it." And they're like, because I don't feel like it's not permeating our society in this moment.
And not that we should confuse activity with progress, because I can have a terrific work ethic and I can be burning the candle at both ends, as they say. It's not going to guarantee success. To your point, though, that work ethic, when it's done in the right way, in the right direction, as you're sharing it, can really stand out and make all the difference. So here you are. You're brand new. You come into this company and you're going from $0 to over $20 million in revenue. And to put this in perspective, as we throw these numbers around, and even that sale to IBM for $10 million, that's when money was really a lot of money. That $10 million today would be way out there. Add a few zeros to that. So a lot of good things going on with that. What was some of the secrets to your success coming in brand new like that? What was going on with that?
The company was growing along the way because there were already people in place. I did increase sales by 90% in 1 year when I was president of the company. So I was part of the growth, but I would not take credit for all the growth. But in terms of when I started in outside sales, this is an interesting story because I just want to qualify something. I don't believe working 24/7 is healthy or a key to anybody's success. I do think working on the right things at the right time and leading people in the right way, people that you care about, your team members, is important. We could have a whole discussion about that, but I just want to put that out there. I don't work 24/7 anymore. Like that was necessary in the farm. It's not necessary in my life today. I have a family, I have hobbies, I have 2 companies, I have a great team that runs those. So I'll put that over there on the shelf. When I started in the sales position, this might make you giggle because we're probably close to the same age, but my job was to make 100 cold calls every day on a tick sheet before I could go home. Now, I love bragging about that story because most people don't believe me, right? They're like, that's not even possible. But literally, we'd put them on a tick sheet and hand it to our sales manager, and then he would go mark the big whiteboard. And we weren't released until it was updated. But here's what I learned very quickly, Jeffrey. Making 100 cold calls to make 100 cold calls does not equate to success. Doesn't guarantee anything, right? What I realized very quickly was making, and this is that word intention, making 25 very intentional phone calls that I'd researched, and I knew who the IT director was. They're still cold calls, but I knew who I was calling. My intention was to get the appointment. At that point, my intention isn't to get the sale, it's to get the appointment. So I would call, and you know what? There were an IT director, I'd get him on the phone, different technology then, we still had landlines. And they'd often say, oh, Ursula, we already have 7 vendors that we're working with. We don't need another one of you. And I'd say, Jeffrey, totally, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. And it's good you have 7 vendors. But there's going to come a day when you're going to have some very specific technical need, and you're going to need a very experienced trainer. And by the way, our trainers have 20 years of real world. We had phenomenal trainers and instructors with incredible skill sets. And so I would just pique their interest. I was like, there's going to come a day. And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd say, so let's have a meeting. So that way, you know my face. So when that day comes, you can just pick up the phone and call me. We have a relationship. They couldn't say no to that. I didn't say anything after that. And they were like, fine. So then we would schedule the meeting. 25 intentional phone calls every day with the goal of scheduling 2 appointments, 10 appointments a week. And I did the math and I just knew. I was like, that's what it's going to take. Here's what's hilarious though. I would take my tick sheet into my sales manager, and it took me longer to make 25 intentional calls, right? And I would show him and I'd say, listen, I have 2 appointments booked. He didn't care. Your job is to make 100 cold calls every single day. It's a numbers game. So we would get into this like back and forth and back and forth. Turned out, for me, my method worked, and that's why I was promoted very quickly in the company.
Well, congratulations with that. And from one former cold caller to another, I remember those days with the tick sheets, and 100 was the goal. And listen, easier said than done. And this was before technology is where it is today. And there's a lot of heavy lifting and preparation, but that discipline and that ability to do that, that's everything. And so with that in mind, since then, you went out and you started your own company now. You're helping other entrepreneurs and you're doing some coaching. You have an upcoming course that we were talking about offline, which we'll get to. You've written a number of books. You have your own podcast. So let's start with the foundation. I'm going to ask some basic questions, and I'm really aiming this at Deep Wealth Nation who is still drinking their own Kool-Aid. Hey, I'm an engineer, or I've never been a salesperson. Either you're born a salesperson or you're not, and not me. Or yeah, if I think of a salesperson, I got to count my fingers after I shake that salesperson's hand. It's just a sleazy, no good business. And for me, we're all salespeople, whether we realize it or not. Ursula, since you do this day in, day out, what is, and there's probably many, but is there the good old Pareto's law that, hey, 20% of these beliefs or lack of beliefs are creating 80% of the issues when it comes to sales and really making a difference out there? What would be going on as entrepreneurs that we have with our limiting beliefs and sales and success and achieving our goals?
That's a great point. I've done this work for a long time. I had to write a whole book about it called The Belief Zone, and I'm NLP certified. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. NLP gets a bad rap. People are like, oh, are you NLPing me? No. NLP has some phenomenal tools when it comes to how to change beliefs. And I went to the NLP Institute of California back in 2005 to get my certification. I would say that was one of the most powerful certifications I've ever gotten in terms of helping clients shift beliefs. And here's the long and short of it. There's one belief about sales, one limiting belief about sales that consistently seems to come up for almost everybody. I'm a sponsored chair for a nonprofit, and it's a lot of parents that are involved, and we're raising money for this baseball trip. And these poor parents, like, they don't sell on the regular. So I'm seeing all the limiting beliefs. But again, it's the number one limiting belief that I see coming up so much is I don't want to be perceived as being pushy. Because that has so many layers to it. It's the reason I don't pick up the phone in the first place. It's the reason I don't follow up 5 or 6 times or more, even though statistically I need to close the sale, right? And so a fun hack, a fun quick way to shift the belief, even if you're an engineer, by the way, I've trained some phenomenally highly intelligent engineers to sell. And they have thanked me for it. They've said, I never thought I could be a salesperson, and I am now. But this was one of the pieces. So ask yourself this question, and Jeffrey, we can play along. What's potentially not true about me being a pushy salesperson if I follow up more than 5 times? What's potentially not true about that? One, I care about my client. I actually do want to help them. So that's one thing that's not true. What else?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess, yeah, let's just role play this, because for me,
Ah,
I was the worst salesperson. Deep Nation, when I first started, I was the worst salesperson. I mean, this is when I was doing a multi-level program, and I was selling water purifiers. I was still in my teenage years. I would go door to door to do my thing, and I'd be sweating bullets. I'd be tripping over my words, but I invested in myself. And where I changed my beliefs, Ursula, over time was, hey, I'm here to help this person. They may not realize that they need that help, but they have pain. They may not be admitting it to me. And if I just walk away from the first time, well, what if that person keeps on going through that pain and their life isn't where it could be or where it should be? Or maybe they've just had a bad day and they
yeah.
just hung up or didn't reply, or these days clicked on delete or ignore, or whatever the case may be. Let me come back at it another day. And oftentimes it's not even 5 times. It might be 7 times or 10 times, especially today because we're all so distracted. But for me, I'm on a mission to help people, to solve their painful problems, take that painful problem away and put them on a better path, a more joyful path. And I know for me, when I'm feeling squirmish, oh, I'm going to be that stalker, or I'm going to be that annoyance on them. Hey, Jeffrey, actually, no. What if you could change their life for the better in this one area?
Yeah, beautiful. Exactly. And so that, for everybody who's listening, Jeffrey, that's a great example of how you start to hack that limiting belief, because you start to see what's not true about it. And as you start to see what's not true about it, your subconscious mind says, oh, that's right. Like, I'm actually doing a disservice if I don't follow up. What if they buy an inferior whatever from somebody else, and then they're really not being served, but they've wasted a bunch of money, right? So you just start to talk yourself through it. Ultimately, then you want to get to a new belief. And I love the new belief. This came from working with clients, and together, collaboration, we came up with this. And this is the new belief. I am, because the words I am are 2 of the most powerful words, as you know, in the English language, because the subconscious mind believes whatever you say after that. And a lot of times we say things after that aren't very nice about ourselves. So just note that. I am a professionally persistent problem solver. The P's make it easy to remember. I am a professionally persistent problem solver. And a lot of my clients have put that on their desk. They put it on their phone. They put it everywhere. And they just start to remember that. I'm here to solve a problem, meet a need. If I can help you, Jeffrey, great. I want to help you. And if I can't, maybe I can refer you to somebody else. Like, literally, that's what I used to say. People are like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I am, my goodness, Ursula, with your background and where I've been with this, that could be not just an episode, that can be a whole series. There's a whole connotation to I am that goes back to biblical references and the power of I am and what that reference is. We'll just leave it at that for now. Something incredible there. And I want to go back to something else that you said, because here at Deep Wealth, for Deep Wealth Nation, in the Deep Wealth community, with what you said, hey, it's not about working 24/7. It's not about working till I'm burnt out and not enough sleep, because we're all about that. In fact, the Deep Wealth podcast, helping you extract your business and personal deep wealth. So it all comes back to what's the point of success and all those zeros in the bank account if I don't have my health, if I can't get out of bed, or if I'm just in so much pain, or I'm not thinking clearly. So before we move forward on that side, where you've been and now what you're doing, so when it comes to health and when it comes to success, I believe there's so many wrong ideas and notions that are put out there. Hey, if you don't work hard, if you're not working from sunrise to sunset and beyond, only getting a few hours of sleep, then you're doing something wrong. Can you dispel that for us of how can we have a life and health and also phenomenal success as well? What is that looking like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's hard right now because we do see a lot of, we'll call them successful entrepreneurs who are very well known. I'm not going to name names, but they claim to work, like sleep maybe 3 hours. And maybe for them they do. They're superhumans. I wonder if they're robots sometimes, right? And that's just in a different realm. That's not normal. That's not how most humans biologically operate. I've seen studies. There are people who can operate on 4 hours of sleep. This is a very tiny percentage of people. So when I left the corporate world, I had not mastered that. I'm not going to say I've mastered it either yet, but it was definitely an area of growth for me. And my health was deeply impacted. I was a president of a multi-million dollar company in my 20s. I didn't have life experience. I didn't have what I had was growing up on the farm experience, which taught me to work all the time. So I was a mess by the time that was all done, health wise, not like in a way that I couldn't get out of bed or anything like that. But I started to develop some health issues, which also made me realize I didn't ever want to work for anyone again. I wanted to have my own company so that health could be a high priority. And so I could create, as I call it, an intentional schedule that supports my body, my spirit, my emotional well-being, all of those pieces. So yeah, I'm a huge believer. I love sleep. I have read about sleep. I have studied sleep. I prioritize sleep. I prioritize health. Those are definitely areas of incredible wealth. I agree with you. There have been times with significant health stuff where I do think there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I think there's a lot of truth to that. And so when you are having health problems or stuff's coming up, and even paying attention to where in your body is, what's your body trying to tell you? What is it asking for you to shift on a personal level, a professional level, a spiritual level? Because your body's trying to tell you something.
So much there. And yes, I can relate, Ursula, especially early on, much like you in my journey where I wasn't getting much sleep and I didn't realize what I was doing to my health. Game changer now, not doing that, learned the lessons and had to trace my steps back to get back to baseline, back to health and have all that done. It was interesting. A short while back, very successful individual in business, in the billionaire realm, had some health issues. Sadly, the individual passed away, but I'll never forget one conversation where he said, Jeffrey, I would, in the blink of an eye, I would give all the zeros in the bank right now to have my health back and to know I had a runway ahead of me of days, years, decades for me, for myself and my family, my loved ones, and on this adventure called life. And that's not there. And all my business success, my biggest deals can never get that for me, can never buy that for me. And that's always stuck with me, that conversation and what you're speaking about. So there is a way, and Deep Wealth Nation, go to the show notes. And in the show notes, what I want you to do is click on the links. Ursula's written many books, but buy the book, The Belief Zone. And in The Belief Zone, Ursula, when I was going through that, I mean, there's so much there that just brought me back to where I was and now where I am. And in The Belief Zone, you talk a lot about what we focus on in our words here at Deep Wealth in our 9-step roadmap. Step 5, a winning mindset. And you talk all about that. And you talk about clarify and writing and knowing and creating and being in the zone with all of that. If I can ask an unfair question to you, I'm going to ask it though anyways. In the different steps that you have, the strategies that you have in the belief zone, if you could pick one low-hanging fruit from that book, and again, Deep Wealth Nation, please buy the book, read it, go through it. You'll come out a whole lot better than when you came into it. Is there one strategy that's coming to mind right now that you can share with Deep Wealth Nation? Hey, after this episode, before you move on to your next activity, try this. What would that be?
Yeah, we've actually already touched on it. And so I'm just going to reiterate the steps because it's easy to gloss over it and be like, oh, that's a cool thing, but it really can't help me. If you have a goal right now that you haven't been able to achieve and you're really frustrated, maybe it's a financial goal or anything else, I want you to investigate what you believe about it and to ask yourself, even ask yourself, think about, let's say you want to hit 100,000 a month. I'm just making this up, 100,000 a month, but you haven't done it. Maybe you've gotten stuck at 70,000 a month. Ask yourself deep down, what's the story I'm telling myself about why I can't have 100,000 a month? What am I telling myself? And it might take a little bit of time and you might just want to let that belief float up. Once you get that limiting belief, it could be there's not enough clients. It could be I'm going to be working more and I don't want to. It could be a lot of things. Once you get that limiting belief, then you hack it like we talked about before. Ask yourself, what are 3 things that are potentially not true about that limiting belief? Because that immediately starts to erode it. It starts to go away and it creates room for a new belief. And in the book, I outline how the steps on how to create that.
And Deep Nation, what we're talking about, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what Ursula is sharing and her experience. And Ursula, let me ask you this, because your background in selling and for the upcoming program that you're launching and NLP, all these different things that are going on. Let's flip the script here now. From a very high level, what's the right narrative that you can share with us with certainty of, hey, if you want to go from where you are today to where you want to be, and sales and selling is going to be a part of that, with all the strategies and the techniques that you've learned over the years that you've put into place, firstly, glass half empty, what aren't we doing or what are we doing wrong? And then glass half full, what do we need to change to begin to realize where we want to be and getting there?
Great question. For me, when I'm working with a client, whether they're 7 figures, 8 figures, or they're 100,000 in revenue, the first step we have to have is clarity on where they want to go next. Because I notice that our entrepreneur clients have a lot of ideas floating around. We have, like, for some clients, they could create programs, products, services all day long, and they're just coming up with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And they're just stuck in the day to day, but they haven't clearly defined what they want to create in terms of revenue. Almost everybody I talk to, they're guessing, they're hoping it's a better year. If you want to get to that next level faster, create a real revenue model, a real projection model around $100,000 months or whatever your number is. And then start to reverse engineer it on a revenue model. So it shows you exactly how many of this you'd have to sell, how many of that you'd have to sell. Here's an example. We had a client who sold a $20 product on Amazon. When I met her, she was making $1,000 a month in her business. And she looked me square in the eyes and she said, I want a 7-figure business. And most of the time I'm like, whew, there's just something about the way she said it, Jeffrey. And I was like, oh, wow, she really wants this. And I said to her, we got to break the numbers down. We got to do these things. She started signing up for our classes and our coaching. And the first thing we did, I asked her, I said, you want 7 figures? What can you see right now that's a stretch but believable? And she said, 500,000. I said, great. We sat down together. And I'll still remember this. I giggle because she was like, I can't even type in the numbers. We literally sat together and built her revenue model in a conference room in downtown Minneapolis for $500,000. And guess what? She not only hit that number, she blew it away. We built her next revenue model. She blew it away. She built a multi-million-dollar company, ended up being in Oprah magazine with her products, like blew it out of the water. Why? Because she had clarity. And she still tells the story. There was another revenue model she built where 1 month she had put like some obscure number, like 739,000 or something in November. And she came back, she's like, you're never going to believe this. And I was like, what? She goes, I hit that exact number. So there's something about building it into a revenue model that gets into your subconscious mind and allows your subconscious mind to do the work for you and begin to reverse engineer for you to get there.
What's going on with that? Because I can imagine someone in Deep Wealth Nation, again, more the analytical type, the financial type. Ursula, come on. What are you talking about here? It sounds like La La Land here. That can't possibly be true.
Yeah.
So what would be some of the mechanics or the science that's going on with that?
Yeah. If I knew how to explain that, Jeffrey, I think I'd be a trillionaire. I don't know that there's anyone on the planet who explains it the same way or nails it. Some people, like you said, say spirit, universe, God, the field, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, the observer effect. The list is long. I don't think anybody knows. I really don't. I don't think anyone really can explain that. You used the word synchronicity before. I wrote a whole book called Selling with Synchronicity because I'm a big believer in synchronicity. Carl Jung coined that. He said it's a meaningful coincidence. I'm a big believer that for whatever reason, even if I can't explain it, when you get clear on something, like me getting that outside sales job, I got clear on it, synchronicity starts to show up in that meaningful coincidences start to happen. The next steps start to show up. Some would argue that it's your RAS, your reticular activating system in your brain, that because you've created it, you made a decision on it, you're now looking for it, you're paying attention, it's showing up. Maybe it was always there.
Interesting. And again, it goes back to our mind is such a powerful thing. There's no judgment from our mind. If we believe something is, it is,
It is.
and it'll go out of its way to prove it. And if we believe something isn't, well, it isn't. And the mind will
Right.
go out of its way to prove that as well. And so when it comes to selling, is there one big myth that you find? And I know we spoke a little bit earlier about some myths, but is there one myth that we can dispel right now and swap out that myth for what actually is that can make all the difference? And it doesn't matter if we're a founder, if we're both a founder and a seller, if we're a founder and we have sales teams and salespeople that are helping us, regardless of that, what would you want
Yeah.
us to know?
That after you've had a sales meeting with someone and you thought it went really well, but you didn't close the sale, that they're going to call you to close the sale. Or that they're going to be like, Jeffrey, I forgot to give you my credit card. Jeffrey, please send over the contract. That they're going to follow up with you. They're not. And that's a big surprise to a lot of people they're like, why wouldn't they just tell me they want it? They're not going to. That's your job. That's the job of a professional salesperson, to follow up, follow up, and make me as the client feel like you care. I feel valued then. I feel like you really want to earn my business. I feel like you really want to send me to buy that thing from you. So I would say that's the biggest myth.
It's always that follow up, as I like to say, always keep the monkey on our back. It's not on our customer's back, and always
Never.
checking in and following up and adding that value, and more importantly, getting that dialogue. And for me, it's all about, okay, what's keeping you up at nights? What's that pain point? And here's how I can either help you with it, or actually, you know what? In this case, I'm not the one. Here's what you may want to think about, or here's what you may want to do. And so that said, Ursula, I know for your upcoming program offline, we're talking about that. It sounds really exciting. So what's going on with that? Let's take back the curtain. We're going to do a little bit of a reveal here. What's your secret sauce? What's going on with the program and the years of the coaching and the writing and the podcasting of these systems that you've put together in this upcoming program? What are we going to be learning?
So this is a course, Jeffrey, that I've never offered before. As I think you've probably noticed, I am obsessed with the subconscious mind, how the mind works, how some people easily create what they want and how others seem to get stuck. It's the reason I got certified in NLP. It's the reason I have a master's degree in psychology. It's the reason I read thousands of books every year on the mind. And about a year ago, I was introduced to a technique called image cycling, which was developed by a scientist, Dr. William Bankston, also a sociology professor, who came up with this methodology. In his world, it was really focused on healing. He created this tool and he's like, you could really use it to manifest, I use that word, create whatever you want, to create your goals. And it helps override the subconscious mind. In all my experiences, I have never found a tool like this, but I've certainly been looking for one. It's very simple, but don't confuse simplicity with actually practicing it and using it. Dr. Bill Bankson would say that part's hard. That takes time. And I know masters of image cycling who are doing it 24/7. They're not even thinking about it anymore. It's extraordinarily, incredibly powerful. So I'm going to teach it though from a business perspective, not from a healing perspective. That's not my area of expertise, and how you could use it in your business. So that's what I'll be doing. Now, let me clarify. The course will be in the past as we're listening to this, but you can still get the replay. It's only $44. So if this is something that's of interest to you, we wanted to make it a little bit of an investment so you show up and actually do it. If you're going to pay for it, follow through, do it. I'm a big believer in that. And hopefully it creates some incredible change in your life.
Yes, Ursula, I'm going to go way off the path here. And, the few listeners that we have remaining, because we've been with the more traditional, the not so traditional, we may lose them. And I put the blame all on myself with that, with what I'm about to share next. I remember one of my mentors, and I'd had some business success and a big raving fan of Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And I remember my coach and mentor at the time said, Jeffrey, there's nothing wrong with Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. And yes, you can do that. That said, though, you're working really hard. And in some ways, you're slowing your success down. You're getting in the way of it versus there's different techniques and strategies and ways of being where you can manifest and manifest a whole lot quicker, and not only manifest your dreams and goals, but your dreams and goals to a whole bigger level than what you could ever imagine. And I know with your podcast and the things that you write about and talk about, even this upcoming program that you're doing, it's getting into a whole different realm. And some people just aren't familiar with that. They're on the belief system. And again, no judgment here. Hey, the harder I work, the more successful I'm going to get. And everything is hard work. And even as I say that, hard work, look at those two words, hard work, as opposed to if I were to say ease and flow, manifest, it just has a different ring to it, a different feeling. And I know I'm way out there now in terms of what I'm talking about. And some listeners are like, Jeffrey, you've lost it. I knew you were crazy. Now you're certifiable as you talk about this. So Ursula, from where you sit, where you've been, what you've done, what would you want us to know as what you call on your podcast and in other areas, the quantum revenue expansion and quantum growth? What's going on with that?
Yeah. Well, I think a simple way to think of it is it does begin in your mind first. Everything begins in your mind first, right? It starts with a thought. Everything you see around you that's in your office or in your home, somebody had the thought to create that first. And I believe in business strategy. I teach business strategy. What I also know, though, is if one of our clients has some pretty serious limiting beliefs about themselves, their value, imposter syndrome, not being enough, not thinking they can charge a certain amount, there's so many limiting beliefs. So if we don't also address the mind, it's very hard to make those quantum leaps in revenue. And I will say this too, there are people who are very different than me, but they haven't experienced this. There are people who maybe were born in wealth, born with a wealthy mindset, were able to run with that wealthy mindset, and it wasn't a big deal for them to go out and raise $1 million in capital to start their business. They don't have any limiting beliefs about money or what that means. And so some people like that might be listening. So that's a very different worldview. So I just want to qualify that by saying I'm also only speaking from my worldview and my experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. But to your point, it all goes with the mindset. And I know you talk about that in up level now and the freedom and the alignment and what goes along with that. And so Deep Wealth Nation, if this sounds like a foreign concept to you, and it is, hey, we all got to start somewhere. But if you like it, yeah, hey, Jeffrey, I'd rather have ease and flow. I'd rather manifest than burning the candle at both ends and working hard and all those other kinds of things. There's a lot to be said. Be curious, put judgment aside. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. There's only one way to find out, and try it and see what it's like. And again, when you go to the show notes, in the show notes, we have all the links, and we'll have a link to the program that Ursula's talking about and to her books and everything else. Check it out and try that for yourself and see where it's at. And so, Ursula, before we go into wrap-up mode, as I'm looking at my research here and the list of questions, I've only begun to scratch the surface. As I say, there's so many questions I haven't yet asked. If there's a question that we haven't yet covered, or even a topic, a theme that you want to get out to Deep Wealth Nation before we go into the wrap-up mode, what would that be? Anything coming to mind?
Sure. Yeah. Something just dropped in. So one of my mentors said this to me about 5 years ago. And it was a big shift. And I'd already been studying a lot of different tools, modalities, all these things. But there was this one sentence, and I'm going to share it with you. It shifted everything. And it's certainly something I teach all of our clients. In fact, spoiler alert, it's going on their holiday gift this year. So, and it's this: there is always a way. There's always a way. Now, at first hearing that, you might be like, there's always a way. Well, when you're an entrepreneur and your back is against the wall, there's not a dime in the account. You don't have a sale looking at you. You don't know what, like you're just feeling so stuck. There's no possibilities. I invite you to say that to yourself. There's always a way. There's always a way. I'm just not saying it. We live in a world where there's billions of possibilities at every given moment. And as humans, we're good at canceling those possibilities and not seeing them. And when you say to yourself, there is always a way, Ursula, there's always a way, Jeffrey, mind says, okay, there is always a way. I love sharing that with people.
Yeah, I love that quote. It reminds me of, as entrepreneurs, impossible is spelled I'm possible. And
Yes.
there's a whole lot to be said with that. And actually, as you say that, it's the perfect segue for us to go into wrap up mode. And it's like here on the Default Podcast, it's our tradition. It's really my privilege and honor. Every guest, I ask the same question. It's a fun question. Let me set that up for you.
Okay.
When we think of the movie Back to the Future, we have that magical DeLorean car that will take us at any point in time. So it's like it's tomorrow morning. You look outside your window. Not only is the DeLorean car curbside, the door is open and it's waiting for you to hop on in. What you do, and you're now going to go to any point in your life. Ursula, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be, what would you tell your younger self in terms of life lessons or life wisdom? Or, hey, Ursula, do this, but don't do that. What would that sound like?
Yeah, I would scoot back to, let's say 10. 10, I'd probably be more prepared for this. I would say trust yourself way more than you think.
I like that. Trust yourself way more than you think. So much there. And as you're saying that, I'm going back to when I was just new in business and I didn't trust myself. And that one concept that led to me underpricing what we were doing, not having the confidence. And we're talking about sales and systems and how with your system we can change all that. Well, I was sabotaging myself, not really realizing it at the time because I wasn't trusting myself. So Deep Wealth Nation, that is some terrific advice. And Ursula, before we officially wrap this up, a listener in Deep Wealth Nation, they have a question for you. They want to speak with you. Maybe they want you to come in and speak to them and their team or bring you on board to help take their sales and revenue to the whole next level. Where would be the best place online to reach you?
Oh, fun. I mean, you could go to my website, ursulainc.co, and there's a contact page on there, or you can just email me directly, ursula@ursulainc.co, not .com, .co. If you're on Instagram, you could direct message me there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I hang out in all those places, but often just a direct email is the fastest and easiest way to find me. Thanks for asking.
Love that. In Deep Wealth Nation, it doesn't get any easier because all of this is in the show notes. It's a point and click. Ursula, it's official. This is a wrap. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Jeffrey, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. May you be blessed and your entire listening audience be blessed as well. Thank you.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Wealth Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies, stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post-exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribes, it's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, Thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank, it's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.